In May of 1945, Allied soldiers pushed deep into a hidden cavern in an Austrian salt mine and uncovered a staggering cache. They had stumbled upon thousands of wooden crates stacked floor to ceiling, containing a massive hoard of Europe's stolen cultural heritage. Hidden among the loot was what experts immediately recognized as a priceless masterpiece by the 17th century Dutch master, Johannes Vermeer. Investigators tracked the paper trail of this specific painting. The sale led straight back to Adolf Hitler's second-in-command, Hermann Göring. They also found the man who sold it to him, a wealthy Dutch art dealer named Han van Meegeren. Van Meegeren was arrested and thrown into a freezing prison cell. The evidence against him was overwhelming. By selling a national treasure to the enemy, he had committed treason, a crime carrying the absolute certainty of execution by firing squad. He had an impossible choice to make. He could face the executioner, or he could confess to a completely different crime. Van Meegeren calmly told the authorities that the painting in Göring's vault wasn't a Vermeer at all. He painted it himself. At first, the investigators laughed. To avoid the firing squad, a rejected artist now had to desperately convince skeptical authorities that he was actually guilty of the greatest art fraud in history. Decades earlier, Van Meegeren was just a boy who obsessively wanted to paint. His father hated the idea, forcing the young boy to write punishing sentences. "I know nothing, I am nothing, I am capable of nothing." Van Meegeren rebelled against the cruelty, intensely studying the classic techniques of the old Dutch masters. For a brief time, he achieved high success as a society portrait painter, but the art world was rapidly shifting toward modern, abstract styles. Critics dismissed his traditional methods, mocking him publicly as a mere copyist who lacked any originality. Furious and publicly humiliated, he locked himself away in a mansion in the south of France. He spent the next 6 years meticulously plotting his revenge against the art elite. He chose Johannes Vermeer as his target. Vermeer was the ultimate prize, leaving behind only about 30 known paintings. Conveniently, historians were entirely missing a decade of Vermeer's early career, leaving a massive blank spot in the historical record. Van Meegeren bought cheap 17th century paintings and meticulously scraped off the original artwork, giving him access to authentic, centuries-old canvases. He then invented a genius chemical method to bake his newly applied paint, causing it to harden and form the deep, distinctive cracks of a 300-year-old painting in a matter of hours. He was carefully engineering a weapon designed specifically to dismantle the critics who had rejected him. A physically flawless fake was useless without a way into the market. He needed a hook to bypass Abraham Bredius, the world's most revered Vermeer expert. Bredius had a pet theory. He believed a young Vermeer had traveled to Italy and been heavily influenced by the dramatic, religious works of Caravaggio. Van Meegeren painted a piece called The Supper at Emmaus. It perfectly matched the exact stylistic details Bredius had hypothesized. He fed the expert exactly what his ego desperately wanted to find. When Bredius laid eyes on the forgery, he was completely spellbound, instantly declaring it the masterpiece of Johannes Vermeer. The greatest vulnerability in the global art market was human ego. By 1939, Europe was engulfed in World War II. While his fellow Dutch citizens suffered and starved under strict German occupation, Van Meegeren was secretly filthy rich. He lived like a king, throwing lavish parties funded by a continuous stream of newly discovered masterpieces that he steadily dripped into the market. In 1942, his latest forgery, Christ with the Adulteress, caught the attention of Hermann Göring. Göring wanted the painting so badly, he traded 137 looted artworks to acquire it. Swindling the highest ranks of the Nazi Party made him incredibly wealthy. But selling that specific painting created the paper trail that led Allied investigators right to his door, inadvertently framing him for the crime of treason. Back in his cell in 1945, the authorities flat out refused to believe his confession. They demanded proof. To prove his own guilt, Van Meegeren was ordered to paint for his life. Under the watchful eyes of reporters and court-appointed witnesses, he produced one final fake from his cell. Still skeptical, an international team of scientists put the Göring painting to a rigorous chemical test. The evidence confirmed it. The masterpiece was a modern fake. He had successfully duped the entire establishment twice. When Göring learned the truth in his own cell, an eyewitness noted he looked as if he had just discovered evil in the world for the very first time. Overnight, the Dutch public celebrated van Meegeren as a cunning national hero who had brilliantly swindled their arrogant occupiers. But the historical reality contradicts this myth. Van Meegeren actually held fascist sympathies and even sent an affectionately inscribed art book directly to Adolf Hitler. In November of 1947, he was convicted of forgery instead of treason and handed a light 1-year sentence. His heart gave out a month later, and and he died at 58 before serving a single day in prison. Han van Meegeren built his fortune by weaponizing confirmation bias. He leaves us with the unsettling realization of how easily we believe exactly what we want to see.